The time frame we were existing under was unacceptable.
Okay, well,
and
tell
what this
me-
budget does, months and years, fast.
Years?
We're building new plants in real time.
So just to replace what we have
2x,
expended.
I said months.
And then you said years.
It depends on the weapon system, but 2 to 3, 4x of what we have today. So
Okay.
yes, we're dealing with the reality under the previous administration of what they sent to Ukraine and what they allocated elsewhere.
Okay.
Got it? Hi again, everybody. It's now 5 o'clock in the East. That was the mealy-mouthed, contradictory testimony of Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth back in April. He did say in there, though, that it would take months and years, months and years, to replenish U.S. weapons stockpiles. A very troubling fact, considering our ongoing war with Iran and Donald Trump's penchant for escalating and stopping and escalating over and over again. A few months later, when asked about it, Hegseth grew combative and said a munitions shortage was a story manufactured by the media. As the war continues, there's a growing number of questions about our stockpiles, and at times Pete Hegseth and others in the Trump administration have blamed former President Joe Biden for sending weapons to Ukraine. In fact, Donald Trump sent weapons to Ukraine in the last hour with the cameras rolling, but behind the scenes, it is a different story. According to brand new reporting in the Washington Post, Donald Trump confronted Pete Hegseth about the country's supply of munitions very recently. From that report, quote, Trump's frustration over the Iran war boiled over at Camp David last week, where he demanded answers from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth on why he had apparently been misled on extreme munitions shortages that now threaten to limit military options with Iran. That is according to two people familiar with that exchange. Quote, the encounter took place on the sidelines of his cabinet meeting at Camp David on Friday, where Trump vented at Hegseth that he thought the munitions issue, quote, had been fixed, according to both people familiar with the conversation, who spoke anonymously due to fear of retaliation. The White House immediately denied the reporting, and last night in a post on social media that was posted at 12:34 a.m., Donald Trump denied it as well. The only problem in denying it, he also attempted to refute the reporting and kind of sort of ended up confirming it. The post reads in part, quote, the U.S. has massive amounts of munitions, especially of certain types. Additionally, large amounts are being manufactured and shipped to the U.S. as needed. The leakers of these treasonous statements are being hunted down. Long-term jail sentences will be sought. The funny thing is, if any of this is funny, if you're going to prosecute someone for a leak, that generally means the information that is in the paper is so true that it's dangerous, because lies are not punishable with jail time. Donald Trump revealing the accuracy of reporting while trying to deny it and jail the people at the same time is where we begin the hour with some of our favorite experts and friends. Military analyst, retired Lieutenant General Mark Hertling is here. He served as the commanding general of the U.S. Army in Europe. Also joining us, managing editor at The Bulwark, contributor Sam Stein is here, and writer and editor for Protect Democracy, Amanda Carpenter is here. General Hertling, your thoughts on the, I guess now confirmed by Donald Trump, reporting that he blew up at Pete Hegseth in this Camp David cabinet meeting.
Nicolle, the entire Washington Post story was fascinating because it confirms what a lot of people have been thinking for the last several months. I mean, Pete Hegseth, Secretary Hegseth, has stood before not only Congress, but the American people on multiple occasions and talked about how the U.S. military has conducted 14,000 strikes against Iran. Now, those strikes come from somewhere. And we also have heard Mr. Netanyahu talking about that Israel has intercepted over 1,400 either drones or missiles coming toward Israel, which means there are a lot more drones and missiles going to places like Jordan and UAE and Qatar. And when you have drones and missiles going into different countries, you intercept them with very expensive weapon systems like the Patriot and the THAAD interceptors. Those are two very expensive missiles. The Patriot costs about $5 million per missile. The THAAD costs about $12 million per missile. Additionally, if you're conducting 14,000 strikes as Mr. Hegseth has said, you're usually using Army ATACMS missiles with 300-mile range, and also the PRISM missiles, which the Army has over 300 miles range, along with the aircraft. Those are very expensive missiles as well. Both of them over $2 million a piece. So when you're talking about the kinds of things they're now refuting, it's not just a depletion of ammunition, it's also a depletion of credibility, because you can't conduct all these strikes, which they're bragging about, and at the same time say that a very limited supply of missiles are still available. Plus, the last thing that we'll talk about is Secretary Hegseth, during that congressional hearing, said that we were building factories by the month or years, like you just stated. But the problem is with that, it takes a long time to build factories, and it takes an even longer time to build these very precise weapon systems that come out of the factories. So you can't just fix it, as the president said when he allegedly asked Mr. Hegseth about this. It's not something that can be recovered. This is a long-term problem, and the military has been facing it. And we've also heard, I'll just add one more thing, a combatant commander in the Pacific region saying he was concerned about being able to execute his contingency plans because they were moving things like THAAD launchers from Korea, but also the missiles to the Middle East from his area of operation. So I'm just using battlefield math and battlefield common sense in terms of some of these weapon systems, and the stories don't add up.
Well, I want to, not that it's my job to bolster the Washington Post reporting, but it's not the first time we heard about the limited supply of munitions. I want to just share some reporting from February, also in the Washington Post. Trump's top general foresees acute risks in an attack on Iran. Quote, General Dan Kane, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, expressed his concerns at a White House meeting last week with Trump and his top aides, these people said, cautioning that any major operation against Iran will face challenges because the U.S. munitions stockpile has been significantly depleted by Washington's ongoing defense of Israel and support for Ukraine. Kane's remarks at the White House meeting have not been previously reported. That's from February. So this starts, General Hertling, with the top general's concern about limited supply, and then runs a course of Trump's erratic announced escalations, seemingly not attached to a military or diplomatic strategy for winning the war in Iran. What do you think has happened since February, when there was already concern? And just explain a little bit more why the widening of the war and Iran's penchant for striking our allies in the region means that we have to spread more of these interceptors and munitions to our allies to protect them as well.
Yeah, we put air defense systems in countries like Jordan, Oman, Qatar, UAE, Kuwait, Egypt, Saudi Arabia. So each one of them has a system, either the THAAD or the Patriot, which the military classifies as high demand, low density, which means everybody wants one, but there's not enough to go around. You know, the 4 soldiers that were killed in Jordan last month were all a couple of weeks ago, were all air defenders. 2 of them, the 2 males, were from Fort Bragg, North Carolina. The 2 females were from Ansbach, Germany. That tells me that they're moving air defense systems away from other locations where they normally are to protect these allied nations. And when you protect them, you're shooting rockets against drones and cruise missiles that are coming in. The last thing I'll say, Nicolle, that's important, you just brought up back in February, this was mentioned. That's the first time a lot of people understood it, but I've been watching it for a lot longer than that and been concerned about it. I had an honor to be a member of the Joint Staff as a principal for 2 years. On the Joint Staff, there's also someone who counts missiles and how many they're going out, a 3-star general, the J4, a J8 who